This video covers the site and plugin templates for KonnextCMS. The purpose of this video is to walk through some of the nuances that aren't so easily captured in the README files for those repositories. So I'm going to walk through the file structure and the files in each of those repositories and give a little more background on how to create your own website using the site or plugin templates. So pretty simple objectives. I'm just going to walk you through the site and plugin templates. And here is a little sort of table of contents of what I'm going to cover in this video. So let's just dive right in. I've got both. I'm just mostly going to walk through the code in brackets. That's what you're looking at here, is my text editor that I typically use. So I've got the site template pulled up right here, and here is the GitHub repository where all this code lives. So real quick, if all you're doing is building your own website, then a site template is all you need. And if you're doing a web app, a site template's probably all you need. The difference between the site template and the plugin template is that the plugin template has this additional KonnextCMS directory, and the files in here let you set up a new menu item within the KonnextCMS dashboard, and I'll show you what that looks like when we get to it. So let's start with the site template, because this is the more simplified repository, and it's a good place to start. Probably the best file to start with is the merge script. The merge script is a bash shell script, and it's pretty simple, and it's intended to be customized. But both of these repositories or templates assume that the user is using the best practices as explained in the KonnextCMS documentation. And so here is a directory that I created on my development server, and it's got the KonnextCMS directory, the Keystone 4 directory, and then I cloned the repositories for both the plugin and the site template. So what I'm going to do first is set up my environment and go into the KonnextCMS and run the copy Keystone. This is all stuff that I've copied or I've covered in previous videos, but so what I'm doing is running this copy Keystone bash script, which is creating a directory called myCMS, and it's copying the contents of Keystone 4. And actually, let me pause this, because what I wanted to also show you is how to update Keystone. So Keystone 4 is it's Keystone version 4, and you're kind of responsible for getting Keystone installed yourself. That's outside the scope of the KonnextCMS. It assumes you have a running version of Keystone 4, which you can get if you clone our demo droplet, or if you launch KonnextCMS with the Docker image, that'll compile and run Keystone for you. Or if you're just Keystone guru and you can get it up and running on your own, that's great too. But going back to sort of getting a website set up and using these templates effectively, one of the things I wanted to show is how to update Keystone. So Keystone lives in this directory, and what I'm doing is going into the node modules directory and the Keystone directory, and this is where the actual GitHub, the files in the KeystoneJS master branch of the GitHub repository, that's what lives here in this directory. So I can update it by doing a git pull. Just pulled all the newest updates from the master branch, and then I can do npm install. So this is basically what I'm doing right now, is updating my local copy of KeystoneJS before I try and get my site. I want to get started with the latest and greatest updates. Sometimes this breaks the build, but they've been a lot better about that in the last few months. I haven't had it break a build doing this in a while. So just to test and make sure that everything's running properly. I'm still in the Keystone 4 directory. Now that I've updated and did npm install, I can run this sort of prototype version of KeystoneJS on its own. And so that tells me that Node was able to run it. And so that's running fine. So now I'm going to go into the ConnextCMS directory, run the copy keystone merge script. Actually, and before I do that, let me just pull the latest changes from GitHub. And so that just pulled all the changes I've done over the last few weeks into this ConnextCMS directory, again from the ConnextCMS GitHub repository. Now I'll run the copy keystone directory. So I'm starting with the most up-to-date version of KeystoneJS and the most up-to-date version of ConnextCMS. So this copy script, it deletes the myCMS directory if it exists, copies the Keystone 4 directory to a new version of the myCMS directory, and then I'm going to run this merge script, and that's going to merge all the ConnextCMS files into the Keystone 4 files into this myCMS directory. So you see, the reason it's done this way is that Keystone lives in its own directory, which can be updated independently. ConnextCMS lives in its own directory, which can be updated independently. And then the site and plugin templates, they live in their own directories, which can be edited independently. So you'll be able, by doing it this way, you'll be able to update Keystone and ConnextCMS without affecting your site, or having to manually go in and change a bunch of code to make all the updates work properly. So now we've got a vanilla copy of ConnextCMS, and we can run it by running KeystoneJS. So that's running. I'm going to copy my IP address. Bring it up. Okay, cool. What we're looking at here, this is a PuTTY, and I'm connected over SSH to a DigitalOcean droplet. And if you clone the ConnextCMS demo droplet, this is exactly the environment you'll be working in. Okay, so now we've got our vanilla copy of ConnextCMS running. So now we want to customize the site template. So let me walk you through this. We're going to start with the merge plugin file that's in there. And now this merge script assumes that you're working out of the home directory, and that may or may not be the case. So in this situation, I'm actually in a subdirectory, so I would need to customize that script and give it the path that I want all these files to get copied to. And all it's doing is it's copying the various files in the directory, in that Keystone directory, into the myCMS directory, and it's overwriting any Connect and CMS and KeystoneJS files it needs. So this is here's kind of a visual representation. Is it starts with the Keystone 4 that gets copied and called myCMS. Then ConnextCMS overwrites whatever files it needs in this directory, and then you finally run the merge script in your site or plugin template, and that overwrites whatever it needs into the myCMS directory. So the myCMS is like the compilation of all this, and the order of operation matters. You couldn't copy this directory, then copy this directory, or start copying this directory, and then copy this. That wouldn't work. You need to start, the script needs, the order of operations is important. It starts here, and then overwrites what it needs to from here, and then overwrites what it needs to from here. So that's sort of a visual representation of what I was just talking about. So that's all the merge script is doing, is it's going into the models directory here, it's going into the routes directory here, and it's going into the templates directory here, and just copying what it needs. So let's talk about these directories and what's inside of here. And an important thing to note is that everything I'm talking about in the site template is not ConnextCMS specific at all. It's KeystoneJS specific. You don't actually need to use ConnextCMS in order to get value from the site template, because it's pretty much just interfacing with Keystone. But it's also a very reduced set of files, so all you really need to know in order to effectively build a website is just the files in this template. You don't really need to know anything else about Keystone or ConnextCMS. Okay, with that disclaimer. So the models are Keystone models, and Keystone runs on top of MongoDB, and these model files are what tell Keystone basically how to interact and create database entries in the MongoDB database. And the best place to get familiar with this is in the Keystone documentation. And so this example model is very, very simple. It only has one entry, which is a string. And so, these are really just intended as examples, to get a functional example to get you off and running. And then the view, or the templates, this is where the HTML lives. I've talked about this in previous videos. You can set Keystone up to use different types of templating files like Jade. ConnextCMS assumes that it's set up to run handlebars, which is the .hbs, but you don't need to know anything about handlebars, which is why I like using that template language. You can just treat these as HTML files. So the two important files that I've covered in previous videos is this default and the index. So the index is the actual home page, and then the default is the header and footer and navigation menu, and that gets used in all pages throughout the website, which is nice. You only have to go here, go to one place if you want to change the navigation menu. It only lives in one file. You don't have to go and change every file if you need to make a minor tweak to the navigation menu. So what happens is you've got what looks like the start of an HTML file, your doc type, HTML head. Then you get down here to body. There's some other stuff that's the navigation menu. And then you get down to, there's some flash messages. This right here. Everything that's in the index file or any other view file, like logged in user, I'll cover this, and test, I'll cover this, but those files basically get injected right here by the server when it gets sent to the user. And so everything in here would get injected into that line. So this is the home page. There's a couple other example files here. Test, this is a file that shows up, it's just a very simple example that shows you how to create your own custom KeystoneJS view. And then this is the same type of file, except this one's only accessible by logged in users. And I'll show you how. So that brings us, that's basically the extent of the template directory. And so finally, we'll go over here to the routes directory. And so the most important file in the routes directory is this router file. This is very similar to the KeystoneJS index file. And what makes this different is that when you install ConnextCMS over Keystone, it adds a hook in there to the Keystone index router file that goes out and grabs these smaller router files that are in your template. So what it's doing is it's setting up these routes. So if the user requests /test, it'll send this test page, and that's defined here in the routes views subdirectory. This is what tells KeystoneJS to say, hey, here's my handler, go out and render the test view, which is the HTML in this file here. And the same thing happens down here in logged in user. This looks a little different than this because it requires a user, and if that check passes, if the user is logged in, then it will render logged in user, and so that goes out to this file, which tells it, hey, render the logged in user file, which is this file here. So then it renders it. If the user's not logged in, it'll send them to the login page. And then there's the API handler. So this is not an HTML page. This is an API, like an AJAX call using JavaScript. You can make calls to these, and it says, hey, I'm using this middleware, and the code that you need to execute lives in example plugin with an export function called list. So we'll go here to the API directory, and here is the list function that executes when this is called. So if this is seems a little convoluted to you, this is the typical way that Express works, and a lot of this stuff is hopefully documented in the Keystone documentation because this is Keystone specific. But that's basically the overview. Even if you don't understand this, by knowing where the code lives, you can just kind of copy and hack it until you get comfortable with it. But so in this API handler, there's a list function and a create function and an update function and a remove function, and those are all listed here. And if you don't plan on developing your API, don't worry about it. If you're just doing a website, you don't need to know about APIs. You just need to know about this for non-logged in users and this for logged in users. You can copy and edit the code, and that's all you need to make a custom website. But if you want to take it one step further and build a web app, then you're going to need to open an API, and this is how you do it. So that's everything you need to know to build your own website. As long as your merge script is set up properly, you can just basically do the steps I covered at the beginning by running the different merge scripts, generating the MyCMS, and customizing your own copy of the template, running the merge script in there to copy your edited files on top of everything else. And that's how you build a website with KonnextCMS. And if you run the Docker image, which I covered in another video, you don't really even need to know anything about how to build KeystoneJS or KonnextCMS. You just compile the Docker file and you're off and running. So with that, let's move over to the plugin template. Now the plugin template, actually let's just make sure. Yeah, okay, so covered that. So now we're going to move over to the plugin template. The only difference between the site template and the plugin template is this KonnextCMS directory. The Keystone directory between the two is identical, and everything with regards to the merge script is identical. The only difference is this. And let me load the Ecommerce Demo so that you can see what I'm talking about with the left menu item. So this is a live demo. If you want to check it out yourself, you can check it out. Log in. So this is pretty typical. You log in. If you're an admin, it'll send you to the Keystone admin user interface with this link at the top to access the KonnextCMS dashboard. If you're just a regular admin, it'll send you straight to the KonnextCMS dashboard. So the Keystone admin UI is only available for super users. So that's loading. Now this e-commerce plugin, you can find this on the KonnextCMS website under live demos if you go to example sites. It's right here at the top. You can play with it. But this is a very simple plugin. All it does is it adds this item to the left menu, and this is just a place to store your API key for Molten. But this is this view here. This could be anything. This could be as sophisticated as this view, which is letting me create and edit blog posts. So the view can be anything, but so we're actually inside the backend, inside the KonnextCMS dashboard. So that's what the plugin allows you to do, is it allows you to create this interface within the KonnextCMS dashboard and really customize KonnextCMS for your clients or for whatever web application you're trying to build. You can create this really nice GUI for end users to use. So let's talk about how to do that. Place to start is the plugin settings.json file. So every plugin, so I'm going to use the term plugin here to refer to KonnextCMS specific plugins. And the site template is just for creating sites, but also APIs for a web app in Keystone. So in the plugin, all you have to do is feed the info with this JSON information. So this is telling ConnextCMS the name of the plugin, but also the name of the directory that it can look for in the plugins directory. And the plugin, that's also controlled by the merge script here. So what it's doing is it's going to create the MyCMS public plugins directory if it doesn't exist yet, and then it's going to copy your customized plugin into that directory. And again, you'll need to edit this for your own plugin. This one is actually called this, so that's why it works. And it's the same name here, so you'll need to change that. And then you need to tell it the location of your backbone views, templates, and models and collections. And those you can see them here. They exist in their own directory. So that's all these lines are saying is like there's only one template, and here's the path to it. And if there was more than one template or more than one file, you just add a comma and add the path to that, like this template 2. And like in this case, there's no collection, so that should actually be empty. And or no, there is a collection in this, but in a one I built, there was no collection, so it's fine. They're just arrays with strings pointing to the locations of the files. So and then you need to give it the constructor, the name of the constructor for the different backbone elements. So, for example, the view is called example view 1. And so that's what I'm telling it here, is the constructor is called example view 1, and the model is called example model. That's the constructor. And so that's what these chunks here is. It's telling it the name of the constructor of your plugin. And then this chunk tells the plugin loader sort of how to insert your plugin into ConnextCMS. So the primary view, the one that pops up when you click this left menu, that's this, and that's the instance. So let's see. So typically, what you do is you'd say var example view 1 equals new, and then you'd point it at the constructor. And so that's essentially what's happening is you're saying, I'm going to call this example view 1, and you're telling it kind of what you expect the instance name to be called. And you'll be able to access this with, it'll get attached to the global variable, so it'll be global example view 1, and then that'll let you reference that instance. So in fact, let's just find out what I called this one. In fact, I can just pull up the code. Let's see. So here is the Molten plugin, which is also available on GitHub. So yeah, because I copied the template, so I just went with that. So example view 1. So if I go in here, I can go global.example view 1. Nope, that didn't work. Plugin view.example view. There, that's how you reference it. So the actual view that was created, it lives inside the plugin view, which I should talk about here, or I'll talk about next. Talk about that in a minute. So this is just saying, here's the name of the instance. Here's the name of the view of the constructor. These are for the primary. Again, these are for the primary views. So this is the one that gets loaded when you click the left menu. You can have other views, other child views, but you need to tell it which one is the primary one that should get loaded when that left menu item gets clicked. The ID, this is a div. So a div gets created when it loads the plugin, an HTML div, and then it gets attached an ID with whatever you did here. So in this case, I can go, this is jQuery, and I'm going to say find this element. And so it's, I don't think it's going to show anything because it's hidden. Maybe not. Okay, yeah, so that's the actual left menu item. Okay, so I take that back. It's not a div. It's a list item in the left menu that gets that ID. And then the label, Molten API, that's what gets displayed right here. And then the font awesome icon I want next to the label in the left menu item, which is the shopping cart right there. So hopefully I didn't confuse you. Right now we're looking at the Molten plugin. I'm going to go back to the plugin template, and you'll see this. And if you run this, you'll see a left menu item. In fact, I think it's loaded in the demo, in the live demo. Let's log in here. So I'm loading the live demo because I believe the plugin is actually in here, and I want to show you the difference because it's using the same widgets. Oh shoot. Okay, so it's not loaded in there. But anyways, you get the idea. Font awesome icon, label, and then the ID for the list item, and that all controls the left menu item right here. So that's the plugin settings, Jason. The plugin view is part of ConnextCMS, and it talks about it here. I'm in the plugin template GitHub repository looking at the README, and it discusses it here, the plugin view.js. So this is a file that is part of ConnextCMS core. It's not part of the template, but it's the file that is responsible for loading plugins. And there's a couple things you should know. It gets loaded as global plugin view. There's this global variable that holds all the backbone elements in the program. Let me just show this. That's what we accessed here. So it's a view, and it holds the other views. It holds this example view. Right now there's only one loaded plugin, but it has this plugin data and loaded plugins. So right now there's only the one plugin, which is example view 1, and that's loaded into this array, loaded plugins array. And then the data for that plugin is here. So the files, the models, the templates, the views, all the data that was in that JSON file is stored in here. And if there was more plugins loaded, there'd be more than just one entry in these arrays. And probably the most important thing to know is this initialize function. Let me walk you through those right now. So they're a little different whether you're talking about a backbone view, a template, or model, or collection. But it's what I'm talking about is this initialize function. So in views, you don't have to do anything because it has a native options. But what it's doing is in each of these initialize functions, it's going to get a local copy of the plugin data and the plugin handle, which contains everything about your plugin. You can reference it internally to each object. So it's nice to have that info at your fingertips in each of these elements that you might be dealing with. And so the model is similar. Save. So this is not like normal for most backbones, so you need to add this. This is what this little comment here in the README is talking about. Is you need to follow the template here and add these variables, because that's what it's going to. Plugin view.js is going to load the plugin data into this variable, and you need to be able to grab it and load it locally. And ConnextCMS expects you to be able to do this. So I think the same thing happens here. Yeah, this options, and then here you can see it's grabbing the plugin data and adding it locally. The template's just an HTML file, so it doesn't doesn't need anything. But yeah, whenever you're that's really the only difference between the plugin and the standard vanilla backbone type application is this little tweak. It looks like it's really just to the models and collections. Is you're just adding these variables into the init function just so ConnextCMS can locally load your plugin data. Okay, so we talked about the init function. If you are totally unfamiliar with Backbone, then you should go to connextcms.com and click on this link right here. This takes you to a book, an online free open source book called Backbone Fundamentals, which is an excellent introduction to Backbone. And all Backbone is if you know JavaScript, then you're fine. Like, Backbone's really easy to pick up. It's just a way of structuring the code. It's not a full-blown framework in the sense that like Angular or Ember is, or React. You don't have to learn a bunch of new weird stuff. It really just helps you structure your code intelligently to improve readability. And so anyways, this is a wonderful book. Most people, if you're familiar with JavaScript, you can pick up Backbone in like an afternoon, which is why ConnextCMS uses it. And so the plugin provides these examples. So here's an example of a plugin view. Here's an example of a Backbone view. Here's an example of template, which is called by the view right here. Creates the template, and then in the render function, it renders the template right there. And then the model is just like it's similar to a database model, except it lives in the browser and it holds the data, and it has hooks for updating the save function. It goes out to the server and updates the data on the server. And then a collection is just a collection of models. You can think of it basically as a glorified array. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So if you just follow the README, follow this video, you should be off to being able to create your own views here, or your own menu items within ConnextCMS. And like I said, if this is not something you're interested in, you should be fine with the site template, and you can still create web apps and create customized HTML files and handle the user experience. You really only need the plugin if you plan on adding left menu items to ConnextCMS. So that covers everything that I wanted to cover.